I'm going to show you guys step by step how to build a naturalistic vivarium. So we've got a surprise animal for this one. We've been gifted an animal, or my girlfriend's son has been gifted an animal, and it's to go in here. Now it's a secret animal. If you want to know more about it, click the subscribe button, go through my videos. You'll see a video, it will say something along the lines of the surprise animal has arrived or something like that, and it'll be an unboxing video. But this is how to build a naturalistic vivarium from scratch.
So here there is a few things you're going to need. We're going to need to start off with the vivarium that you're choosing. For me, it's this 3-foot vivarium. It's a Viv Exotics vivarium. It's an old one that I had lying around that I no longer need. I figured this would be absolutely perfect for this surprise animal. Now the first thing we've had to do to this is take the vents out of it, simply so that I can see where they are so they don't get secured in there. We've took them out and we can foam and do all the stuff around them. Now this is the foam that we're going to use. It was a cheap one I found in the local shop and in the local hardware shop, and it's mold resistant, which is vitally important, and it expands to 6 times its actual size when sprayed. It takes a little longer to set, it takes 24 hours, but you have to give it a good shake first, which is exactly what I'm doing here, mastering my skills. Now before we actually got to this foaming stage, we gave it a really good clean. I've sped up the video a little bit just here so you can see it and not get too bored really. But give it a good foam all the way around, keeping in mind it's going to expand to 6 times its actual size. Now this 3-foot vivarium, it took 2 of these spray foam cans for it to do the whole background. You don't need to go right the way to the floor because you have to take into consideration your drainage layer if you are going bioactive and all that sort of stuff. As you can tell, it's extremely sticky. It's stuck to the tube just there, and just keep going. We had to leave it for 24 hours for it to set solid all the way through. But only half an hour after it actually is sprayed down, it's starting to expand nicely. It's getting really tacky because the outside expands the most and that hardens up, and then all the inside starts to harden. But at this stage we can start adding in the branches where we want it. Now the whole joy of this one is we had to prop up the branches in different areas, and we sort of winged it and went as and when we pleased, keeping in mind the background's not going to stay this colour. That is going to get covered, and for the species that we're putting in here, it's a mountain species from out of the western coast of Mexico. So we kind of want to replicate that, the sort of Rocky Mountains a little bit. So once the sticks and the branches are in place, I like to add a little bit more foam just around the base. Now you have to keep hold of it or prop it up slightly so it doesn't fall over and ruin the design that you've got in your head. For me, I propped it up, added a bit more foam around where it attached to the background just to give it a little bit of extra support once it was actually finished. And I just keep adding bits in, as you can tell, really scraggly bits. They've all been dried out, they've all been disinfected with F10 disinfectant. These were collected from a forest, so I did need to make sure all the native species were off this piece of wood. As you can tell, there we go, I've got the biggest bit of the wood actually attached to the background, and I'm going to foam over it a little bit, just to help secure it that little bit extra. Any little gaps that I have missed, I've got a little bit left over in the tub, so I'll quickly run over them. I've got a bit of cork bark and all that sort of stuff just to add into the background, to add a little bit of texture change for this particular animal. And that right there is the background totally complete at the moment. We've still got to add the cover into it, but we have to let it set from this stage. It's looking absolutely amazing to start with. I'm really happy with how it's turning out slowly. This particular animal is going to make every use of all these little nooks and crannies. Now I've bulged it up around the back corners, the bottom corners, mainly because I want to make a little hide out of the foam. So I can cut the foam out to make a lovely little hide in each corner. I've added a great skull there, loads of bits of cork bark to the back. You can see all the little twigs and stuff that I've added in just to help support the wood while the foam is actually setting. And while that's setting, we're going to move on to the substrate. This is just your standard brick of cocoa fibre. You can pick them up dirt cheap. I picked this one up from a local reptile expo for only £1. And it's just cocoa fibre. You add 3 litres of water into it, and over half an hour it turns into 10 litres of cocoa fibre substrate. I add a little bit extra into there, a bit of leaf litter, peat moss, all that sort of stuff just to help build it up. But this is the fun bit now, the creative bit. It's lasted for 12 hours now, and it's slowly hardened off to the point where I can start carving it. Now the point with this, you need to get all the shiny surface off the actual foam. That way The next stage, we add silicone onto the actual foam itself and then cover the silicone in the substrate. I'm going to use the cocoa fibre. The silicone will not attach to the foam if it's shiny, so it's always good to rough it up. Plus it adds a little bit of creative design there. I can start making rock faces or a jungle themed background and just shape it exactly how you want. It only goes as far as your imagination will allow it. Top tip though, don't use a sharp that's too sharp, because sometimes it can slip and you don't want to cut yourself. Remember your personal protective equipment, so wear gloves. Unlike me, I'm not exactly sane, so that's why I'm not wearing gloves. But that's it, we just keep going through, cutting a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, shaping it really nicely. This is the stage where you can get really creative. Sometimes it can get a little bit tricky getting underneath the logs, but just persist. Try your hardest to get in there, because you don't want that spot to go without the substrate on the silicone background. Make sure you do a good job here. This is the most important part of a naturalistic background in your vivarium.
Now for this stage, we've got some brown silicone sealant that we've got to cover the entire background in. Top tip, make sure you use quite a lot and in a well ventilated area. You stick quite a lot on, and then we get the substrate, in this case cocoa fibre, and we make sure it's dry, or as dry as we can get it, and we basically force it into all of the silicone, and it adheres into the actual silicone and it becomes all one. Good warning, well ventilated area, it can smell. Top tip, make sure both the expanding foam and the silicone sealant is mold resistant. That's very important, but try and get one with as least amount of chemicals in as possible.
But once you have finished that stage, you covered the whole thing in silicone and then force the substrate onto the background. This is what you're left. I've done a couple of little hides there, one in the corner just there. You can see I've not done around the vent because I've still got to put the vent back in there, but this is what it looks like as a background on its own. Underneath that one corner there is the heat mat. We've got a little live succulent plant in there with the skull. I robbed that skull out of our Poecilotheria regalis enclosure. We've got the vent up there now. I've still got to put that back in, but doesn't that look absolutely amazing? That's stood up now, so as you can tell, all the branches are in there really nice and really firm.
This species can live at room temperature quite happily. And commonly does live at room temperature. However, this room that it's going to be living in, which is my girlfriend's son's room, it's 18 degrees Celsius normally, so it's a little bit cooler than I'd like. So I've put the heat mat in there just on one side so it can thermoregulate, so it is a cold-blooded species, and the heat mat is thermostatically controlled. As you can see, I've just programmed it all in. We're going to set it on a fairly low temperature just because it doesn't need to be that hot.
And the thermostat we chose to run this heat mat, it doesn't need to be a powerful one, but Microclimate's Mini Stat 100 is absolutely perfect. The heat mat's just on the one side there with the thermostat probe already set in on under the foam. That was all put into place before the spray foam actually went in, so it would secure it down nicely. I've cleaned all underneath the foam so the heat mat's not in direct contact with the actual foam itself. Now I'm just putting stuff in there just to sort of see how it goes. I put the glass back in there with a lock. This is going in a 12-year-old bedroom, so I need the lock on there just for a bit of added security, just so he doesn't want to go in there and get it out to show his friends. But God, it's starting to look really good now. You can see a few spots where I need to touch it up a little bit. I've got a couple of hides down on the hot side.
So now it's a case of substrate. This will be going bioactive, so we're going to have a substrate that's capable of housing a cleanup crew. A cleanup crew is crustaceans, custodians, all that sort of stuff. Little woodlice, springtails, all that sort of stuff that live in the forest floor. All the little bugs and everything that help break down all the waste matter. They will eat all of this animal's poop, and along with other stuff that's in the substrate, the leaves and stuff like that, and help break it down. It'll make an extremely rich substrate which will be able to cater for the plant life. Absolutely amazing. There'll be absolutely nothing needs to be added into this enclosure. It will never need to be cleaned out because the cleanup crew, the custodians, will do it all for me. In this case, I've added tropical grey woodlice, not too many, just enough, and a small colony of springtails. They're little custodians that will help clean up everything. The substrate itself is a mix of cocoa fibre, topsoil, leaf mulch, peat moss, We've got a little bit of charcoal in there just to neutralise the pH level of the soil. And that is about it. We're going to mix in some crushed up leaf litter and add a little bit of leaf litter onto the top as well. And that is the perfect habitat for this cleanup crew. It's a little bit hard to see through the glass. You can see my reflection. Hello. But that's it, the glass is there, it's all set up, ready for the animal to go in there, and I am wow chuffed with how it's looking. I even added this little school feature thing in there, just for it to climb and crawl all over. On the cold side, we've got a water dish. It's not a deep water dish. The water that's in there isn't very deep either, because I don't want this species to drown. The lock is nice and secure. We've got a hide under there, one in that dark, deep back corner. The skull even looks a bit friendlier with that succulents growing nicely. It's just looking absolutely amazing. And that, guys, is a naturalistic vivarium. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I really appreciate it. If you've enjoyed the video, learnt anything, or want to know more, hit that thumbs up button. If you're new around here, hit that subscribe button. And if you hit that notification bell that's right next to it, you'll get notified next time I do upload a video. Thanks for tuning in. Peace out.